Welcome to this very special edition of The Author's Voice with KAJ, a show where we explore the stories behind the stories. Here we dive into the worlds created by authors, discover their inspirations, and ensure that you walk away enriched and inspired. And today we have with us Douglas Brouwer. He's an author and pastor. He has published 8 books, the most recent titled The Traveler's Path, which explores various kinds of travel and asks if travel truly can be life-changing. So we'll talk about that book. Let's dive into the story behind the story with Douglas Brouwer. Welcome to the show, Douglas.
Greetings, AJ. It's good to be with you again.
You are welcome. Welcome back once again to the show, this time on the Author's Voice with KJ, Douglas. So first, you have written about this book. Several books you have written. This is the recent one. So firstly, let's understand a bit about your journey as an author. What led you to become an author of several books, Douglas? It's difficult to write even one book. You have written several books, 8 books in total.
So when I was in 5th grade, what does that make me? About 10 years old. I wrote an essay called My Most Embarrassing Moment and entered it in the school's prose and poetry contest and won 2nd place. And my teacher, who was just wonderful, who understood me, I felt as though she understood me. She said, "Doug, you can tell a good story." And I think that was what I wanted, was for a baseball coach to say, "Doug, you can really play baseball," but that never happened. What I heard was, "You can tell a good story," and so that's what I pursued.
Absolutely, but a lot of people hear those words in different parts of their life, but not everyone becomes an author. It needs a lot of dedication, motivation, and energy, as well as ideas to to write so many books. And life also happens along the way. So what is the secret of, to ask you again in a different manner, what is the secret of writing so many books as an author?
It takes some determination. I practiced. I kept journals. I wrote, was on student newspapers and so on. And I was determined to have a book published by the time I was 40. And I had even worked at a publishing company, so I knew the editor. He and I went out to lunch, and I pitched my idea. And not many people have that kind of access to the editor-in-chief of a publishing company. But we had lunch together, and he looked at me and said, "Who are you, and why would anyone want to read your story?" which was a rejection, to be honest about it. And I did not get my first book published by the time I was 40, but I kept with it, was determined to become an author.
Absolutely. So how did that turn out to be? How was the first chance that you got about actually when your book got published? How did you find answer to that question? Who will read your book?
So today, the publishing world demands that authors have a platform. And I don't think this was true 20, 30 years ago, but it's certainly true today. An author is expected to have a social media presence, for example, and maybe even to be an influencer. That's not my primary interest, but I do it because it's expected of me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Douglas, let's come to your book. This is the book, The Traveler's Path. So what were the other books all about? And was it in the same domain, Traveler's Path, or were those other books, it were different domain, and now this is a different one? Help us understand about the other books and then this one book.
Yeah, well, all of my books, to be honest, have grown out of my work. Including this last one. They're dependent on my work as a pastor and the experiences I've had. But this one is different in a way because it includes, it's about travel. I can't adequately answer your question without giving a shout out to my daughter. I was a younger daughter. I was working at the time in The Hague. This was 2.5 years ago. And my daughter and I was thinking about my next book project, And my younger daughter said, "Dad, it's so obvious." So here we are sitting in a restaurant in another country. And she said, "You've spent your life traveling. It's time to reflect on that. And it's time to figure out why you did that and what it has meant in your life." And so that's where the book came from, a conversation with the daughter.
Absolutely, absolutely. A conversation with your daughter. So tell us about this book. What is this book? Obviously, it's about traveler, but travel and travelers. But you tell us, what is this book about, and who is this book for? Is it for the travelers? There are tricks and tricks for them, or is it for the non-travelers also to egg them into traveling, or something else?
Yes, if you are looking for tips on how to make use of frequent flyer miles, if you're looking for hotel insights, this is not the book for you. What I have in mind here is a reflection on why so many of us do it, why we feel compelled to set out and see new things, to explore other cultures. Early on, I say sometimes a vacation is just a vacation. Sometimes we just need to get away from our work and sit with our toes in the sand and read a book. That's also not what this book is about, but I've done my share of that. This book is about finding meaning in where we go, understanding other cultures, and therefore understanding ourselves better. I think every chapter eventually comes back to that issue. What can I learn about myself because of where I've been?
Absolutely. Tell us a bit more about this book. How have you, discussed what have you discussed in these books? How have you discussed it? Because travel books can, end up just in few pages. How many pages? What are the things that people can expect from this book?
Well, I haven't checked lately. I have it in my hand. I think it's a 200-page book, so it's a typical trade paperback in a way. But the book explores various kinds of travel. In my experience, I've gone on mission trips where we've painted houses and built wheelchair ramps and that sort of thing with teenagers, but also with adults. I've been all over the world on mission trips. I've been on study tours. And then more recently, I've been leading pilgrimages to places like, Israel, of course, but also Greece and Turkey, Scotland, many, many places. So the book asks hard questions about these kinds of experiences. And frankly, I think that a lot of what passes for a mission trip, for example, is not so good. There are lots of problems with most mission trips. And so I acknowledge those problems and also offer questions about how to make them better. So it's the book covers various kinds of travel.
Right. And who is this book for? Is it for the travelers or non-travelers?
It is for travelers, but the fact of the matter is most people, I mean, a shocking number of people love to travel, and they love to describe themselves as well-traveled. I mean, in fact, the best kind of compliment you can receive, many of us can receive, is to say, "Well, he or she is well-traveled." I think the number of people who say I don't care to travel is actually quite small.
Absolutely, Douglas. So a lot of people, you had the chance to travel a lot. A lot of people do not have that chance to travel a lot, but they want to travel. How do you want them to think about to travel? And should they only think about outside their country, or also inside their own country is a good option?
I think you're right about that, that travel is in many ways the result of privilege. And I will be the first to acknowledge that it takes a time, which not everyone can take. It takes some money to go places. So yes, I'm the first to acknowledge that travel is often a matter of privilege. On the other hand, you don't need to go far to have these amazing transforming experiences. And the book acknowledges people like, well, Henry David Thoreau comes to mind. He he never did more than take long walks around a pond, right? But in his long on his long walks, he had his eyes open and his mind was alive. And so that is what I encourage in my book, for people to think of, well, every time they leave the front door of their homes, to think of that as an adventure, as an opportunity to learn something, to make a new friend, to have a new insight about life. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Going long distances is not the only kind of travel there is.
Absolutely. How have your diverse travels, influenced your own growth, personal growth?
I mentioned pilgrimage a couple of minutes ago. I started out by taking large groups of people on pilgrimages, and the idea was that they would have transforming experiences, and many of them did. And I tell some of their stories in the book. But later in my life, I decided that I wanted to go and not be responsible for a large group of people. And so in recent years, I've been going by myself and having what I think are amazing experiences where I learn a great deal about myself, not always flattering. But nevertheless, this is what I set out to do. I was very intentional about that. Just to give you an example of this, I've walked twice now on Camino paths in Spain and Portugal. And these have been opportunities for me to meet people from all over the world, fellow pilgrims. We walk together, we get to know each other. And I think that traveling by myself has actually been wonderful at this point in my life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So in terms of, see, this book of yours, a lot of people will read, are reading. Some of the people will not be able to read it, but they would maybe perhaps see this show, hear you. What is this one thing, at least you want them to know about from your book? Any particular chapter, any particular line, paragraph that you would want to read, or perhaps tell them about, that this is what your whole experience that you want to share with them?
The first thing that comes to mind is that this book is probably written to an American audience. I know that there are some bookstores in Europe where I lived previously. I know that there are some bookstores there that carry this book, but this book is written primarily to an American audience. And the message I want to convey to them is that Americans need to travel far more humbly than they often do. They need to acknowledge that Americans don't know everything or even the best way to do everything. That there is a great deal we can learn from other cultures, but to do that, to begin learning, we need to be humble, as I said. We need to be willing to accept that there are better ways to do things than the way Americans typically do them. So yes, this is a book written primarily to Americans who could, if they wanted to, have a far richer experience when they travel.
Absolutely. So, Douglas, I want to understand, while researching this book, while writing this book, any unexpected insight, that you revealed, you found for yourself while writing going through this whole process, about yourself, about the world, about travel itself? Anything that you recall?
Yes, as a matter of fact, I was very curious at the beginning to understand why it is that people have this restlessness to see the world. And at root, I think the restlessness that human beings have is a spiritual restlessness. And if I can put this in Christian terms, I'd quote the old theologian St. Augustine, who once said, "Our hearts are restless until they rest in God." So in my opinion, at the root level, our determination to go places and see things is a spiritual longing for something, completeness, wholeness. If you are a Christian, you would say for God.
And especially in these times, when you can reach to any place, see it in real time through the power of this satellites and all, and you can, and still that yearn for going to places still there. That will not change. What do you think? Or it will change with all the powers that you can see any place in real time?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, AJ. Thank you for that. And I am a big advocate for watching YouTube videos about travel. In fact, I usually look at the places I'm going to visit on YouTube before I get there. It's a wonderful advantage that travelers have today, but it seems to me there is no substitute for actually being in a different place. So there's a climate to understand. I lived in, as I mentioned, I lived in the Netherlands for a while. I thought I knew the climate of the Netherlands, but until I spent a winter there, I did not really understand that. But then maybe more importantly, the culture of a place. I don't think that by watching a video, you can fully appreciate the culture. I'll give you one example. In the Netherlands, people are known for Dutch directness. Well, I come from a place where people avoid being direct all the time. We try to be nice to everyone. But in the Netherlands, what's valued above all is to be very direct, to say whatever it is that's on your mind, to say it out loud. And I don't think you can find out about that by watching a video. You have to be on the receiving end of the directness of Dutch people. What else? Other customs. I lived in Switzerland also for several years, and whenever people entered a home as a guest, you would take your shoes off immediately at the front door. Well, that's not something I did in my own country, and often my hosts would have slippers for their guests to put on as they moved into the house. Well, I had to think about that and reflect on what that meant. A very different cultural custom that you would not have picked up on by watching video. Yeah, I like that question, AJ. That's a good one.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for information, even in India, it is a very big custom to not, take your shoes inside your house. Maybe you keep. Earlier on, it was much more conservative outside, but especially in apartments, it is not possible. But still, people will not roam around in their houses. Very few of them with shoes and all. So in India, I guess it's for many other countries also. It is like that. I thought I'll just share with you on the show.
Well, and one of the ways you find out about these differing customs is by breaking them. So you immediately do something incorrect or something that's not customary in another country, but in the process of breaking the social rules, you learn something valuable about that country. So I do encourage people to, the Christian term is sin boldly. Just make mistakes, but then be willing to learn from those mistakes. What is it about this country that makes removing shoes so important?
Absolutely, absolutely. Now let's understand any key challenges that you faced during writing this book. Was it a easy process for you?
I have to say it was relatively easy because I have such a love for travel and going places. I think, here's a challenge I discovered as I was writing. I did not have an easy relationship with my parents, particularly my father, who was in America, they're called the Greatest Generation. He was a World War II veteran, and he sometimes asked hard questions about choices I made. But here's the difficult learning I made in writing the book. I discovered that my curiosity was a gift that he gave me. So in some ways, this book redeemed our relationship. I realized that I spent my childhood taking long road trips around the United States and Canada. And that was his gift to me, to be passionate about finding new places, people I didn't know before. And so the result of this book was an unexpected result in a deeper appreciation for the man who was my father.
Absolutely. So 8 books, Douglas. Anything else in the pipeline? Anything else that you are doing? You want the world to know about?
I have at least one more book left in me, AJ, and I'm already beginning, even though the book tour is not finished for the current book, I'm already beginning to think about a novel, which would be, I've written some short stories in the past, but this would be a first for me. So thank you for asking. I'm beginning to work on a novel.
On travel or something else?
You know, it's going to be a first-person narrative of a pastor's life, and it won't be what people are expecting. I mean, people think they know what pastors think about when no one is looking, but I think I'm going to write a surprising account of what really goes through a pastor's mind.
Absolutely, absolutely. We'll look. So, any timeline that you have set for that? We'll look out for that. Talk about it when it's out.
Yeah, it's going to be at least 2 years. I mean, that seems to be my pattern. Every 2 years, a new one comes out, and I'll be looking for you. So to ask some good questions about my next book.
Absolutely, absolutely, Douglas. So I'll be around waiting for that book too, especially about the topic. It's very intriguing, and you have I certainly will look out for that. So, in a nutshell, coming back to the book itself, Douglas.
Yes.
In a nutshell, what is it that you message, insights that you want your readers of this book to take away with them?
In the very last chapter, I say something very negative about bucket lists. To me, travel is not about checking off the various places we've seen. Travel to me is something far more personal and spiritual than just checking items off a list. So that's what I would like to leave with my reader, that wherever you go, however many places you go, make sure you're open to a transforming experience because of where you went.
Absolutely. There's much to learn about life. There is much to learn about travel. There is much to learn from you, from your books. A lot of people would want to connect with you for your wisdom as well as for your books. What is the best way for them to do so?
You know, like so many authors today, I have a Substack newsletter, and you can find me at Doug's Substack, and you'll find out more about me than you ever really wanted to know.
Wonderful, wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the Author's Voice with KAJ. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.